Hi everyone, Vindicator Jones here, and today I'm going to be having a look at my federal Corvette and take you through its build. This has been a common request I've had for quite a while now, but I've never really got around to doing it because, quite frankly, I'm always making changes to this build and it's never really complete. Now, I'd like to stress that this is a build that suits my playstyle. It may not suit your playstyle, and a lot of people may have different views on how to set up their ship. Also, I'd like to stress that this is a PvE build, not a PvP build. But anyway, let's get into it. Okay, so I'll open up my little panel over here on the right-hand side, and we can take a look at the stats of the ship in its current form. Excuse me, just flipping around there. Okay, as we can see here, I have a shield health of 4,593, which is pretty darn good. Now, a lot of commanders may opt to go for a more resistance-based setup. I've tried to go for a more balanced approach here. So you can see here I've got shield kinetic resistance of 46%, thermal resistance 42%, and explosive resistance of 59%. And while it's true you can get higher resistance values at the cost of shield capacity, I really think having a more balanced approach is a wiser way to go. It means that you've got a lot of shields and you've got a reasonably good amount of resistances for those shields. Now, same thing with army here. I could probably get higher values, but I'm trying to go for a balanced approach. The reason for this is I've noticed that there is a high rate of diminishing returns once you start pushing the higher resistance factors and even shield capacity. So having a good balanced approach, I think, probably makes more sense in the long run. I know there's quite a lot of players out there who will disagree with me, but this is just from my own personal testing and what works best for me. But anyway, let's move on from that. Let's have a look at our internal modules and loadouts. Yes, I initially did have the gold paint job, but I took it off. It's a little bit too much. And honestly, I quite like this paint job. Anyway, let's have a look at the weapons first. As you can see here, I've got two class 4 multi-cannons in the huge hardpoints. Now, they're pretty much exactly the same. I have rapid fire modification with corrosive shell. Now, this is probably not the best idea as corrosive shell does not stack. To be honest, it's just a bit of laziness on my part. I just haven't had much time to get that changed, but it will happen sometime in the future. So consider this all a work in progress. Anyway, moving on to the large hardpoint, I've got a pulse laser here, and basically I'm running rapid fire with phasing sequence. Now, the reason why I'm running rapid fire is, personally, I think it works better than efficient beams, although focus pulse would actually be a good option here also. And yes, I know the jitter problem with rapid fire and also now the heat issue, but to be honest, it doesn't really worry me too much on the Corvette. I just like it, and this is again my personal preference. I'm actually working on another video at the moment where I'm testing efficient beam versus focus pulse versus rapid fire pulse, which has yielded some very interesting results. So for right now, I am going to stick with rapid fire, at least on the Corvette. Anyway, moving on, let's have a look at the class 2 hardpoints. And as you can see here, I'm pretty much running the exact same thing, rapid fire with phasing sequence. And yes, this is on both the class 2 hardpoints, but again, this is probably something I am going to change and have a look at other special effects and try different combinations. Anyhow, moving on to the class 1 hardpoints, again, I'm just using pulse lasers, but they are turrets and they are both running rapid fire scramble spectrum. Now, the idea behind this is to basically not cause damage, but more to try and knock out modules. Now, unfortunately, Scramble Spectrum doesn't stack, so I'll have to remove one of those modifications, special effects, and replace it with something else. But for the moment, I'm just leaving it in. Anyway, let's take a look at the utility mounts and see what we have here. Now, as you can see, I'm completely loaded up with shield boosters. That will change once a new update comes out because we'll have new anti-Thargoid ECM modules, which will help prevent your ship being shut down. So I don't know how many new utility modules I'll be having, but for the moment, I've just got one heatsink launcher, which is basically used to cool me down when I'm dropping my 2 class 7 SCBs, and the rest is just basically shield boosters. Now, some of these boosters are specifically for getting my shield boost higher, as you can see here, plus 54%. as I found that having too many resisted shield boosters means the laws of diminishing returns would affect it too much. The same holds true with shield capacity. If you have too much shield capacity, then you start getting diminishing returns. So I've tried to go for a more balanced approach here. So you can see there's quite a few boosters there that'll help increase shield capacity, but I've also got a couple of boosters there to help bring up the thermal resistance, which initially was actually quite low. Anywho, let's head over to our core internals and take a look what we have here. Now I've decided to go with military grade composite armor rather than mirrored, as I'm just preferring to keep a more balanced approach to this build. As for its modifications, I've decided to just go straight for heavy duty armor rather than focusing on resistances, and basically let the hull reinforcement packages give me the resistances that I need. Again, this is something I'm still playing around with and is a work in progress, and I'll be adjusting this as I need it moving forwards. But for me, this is a good base position to start from, I think. Moving on, we'll have a look at the power plant. Of course, I'm using an 8A power plant with a modification of overcharged power plant. Now, the reason for this is I like having the extra power. Yes, it's less efficient, but again, this is just a good base to build things off, I think. If I want to change this around later, I can easily do that. That's not a problem. But for me, this is a good place to start from. Okay, moving on to the thrusters now. Obviously, 7A thrusters. And of course, dirty drive tuning. Now, yes, they cause this ship to run a little bit hotter than usual, especially when fuel scooping. But having the extra thruster power and engine power is really what I need for the Corvette. And so I don't think I'll be changing this. My top boost speed isn't probably the best. I probably could squeeze more out of it, about that 332 meters per second. I know people have got faster, but for me, this is fine for the moment. I might come back and re-roll it later. Of course, now moving on to the frameshift drive, increased FSD range as per usual, giving me a jump range of about 16 light years, fully combat loaded. Honestly, I wish it was a bit more, another 6 light years, but that's the price you pay for flying the Corvette. It's not too bad, especially if you've got a big fuel scoop, which I do, thank God. Okay, moving on to the life support. Pretty much stock standard life support there, 5D. I might bump it up a bit more and maybe lighten the module, but I'm not really in any hurry to do that just yet. Moving on to the power distributor, I am running Charge Enhanced Power Distributor, which personally I think is the best choice and the best upgrade for your power distributor. Again, I'm approaching this from a balance point of view, and I personally think it's your best choice. Some commanders have suggested going with a weapons-focused power distributor, but I just think it's totally unnecessary with the Corvette's loadout. I could pretty much run with 2 or 3 pips into weapons without compromising on the other systems. Moving on, I've got pretty much a stock standard sensors. I'm considering upgrading to A-grade sensors. You know what? I think I might actually install these anyway. Can never really hurt. And I might actually increase their range with engineers at a later stage. Again, it's not necessary, but what the hell. And here I'm just running a standard fuel tank. If I need extra range, I can always put another small fuel tank in if needed. Okay, now with the hull reinforcement modules here, I am considering instead putting module reinforcement packages here instead to give me a bit more protection for my modules. But at the moment, these are just helping to increase my resistances to obviously thermal, kinetic, and explosive. Okay, let's go over to our optional internal and take a look what's here. Now I'm going to start off with my prismatic shields. Now, some people do run bi-weaves, and that's fine. This really does come down to a personal choice. For me, I prefer having much more shield strength and sacrificing regen rate and also broken rate. Because I have the 2 Class 7A shield cell banks, it helps me really keep my shields online for as long as possible. Once they've dropped, usually it's time for me to get out of there anyway, which to be honest has never really happened unless I've been doing something particularly silly. Now in terms of its modifications, I've just basically gone for reinforced shields, and I'm using the boosters to give me the resistances that I require. Again, this has been a balancing act of trying to keep as much shield strength as possible with as a reasonably good amount of resistance. Okay, moving on, I have obviously got 2 shield cell banks here, and basically when I activate them, they give me just underneath 1 bar of shields. Yes, and that's activating both of them. I haven't done any modifications to these yet, but it's something I am looking into. I'm just not exactly sure with which direction I shall be heading in. Anyway, let's keep moving. I've got a standard 6A fuel scoop, which is plenty for the Corvette. It's not, Class 7 is better, but the 6A fuel scoop is nice. Okay, and of course the obligatory fighter hangar bay. You could probably swap this out for some reinforcement modules, but it's always good to have some fighters, even as a distraction. My fighter of choice is the GU-97s. Even though they're less armoured, they are much more manoeuvrable, which I personally like. Moving on, I've of course got the hull reinforcement packages. Now these are basically just help to get my thermal resistances up, and this should be kinetic, yes, just to get a nice little balance of resistances happening. Now I've just got a small cargo rack here because you just never know when you might need to pick something up. Of course, a planetary vehicle hangar because in case I need to go down and get materials for whatever reason. And last and not least is the advanced discovery scanner to scan the systems. Well, that pretty much covers everything for the build, but what's this like in practicality? How does this handle in real world? Well, in the semi-real world, you know what I mean. How about if I take it out into a HAZ-res with some cargo and just sit there and let people shoot me and see how long my shields and armor last? Okay, let's do this. Okay, here I am in a HAZ-res with some cargo in my hold. Now, I've decided to put a voiceover to this and basically speed up the footage, make things a lot easier. So I've just started to come under attack and we shall speed up the video from here. What I'll do is I'll take pauses every time I drop an SCB. Just spinning around, I should have stayed in the cockpit. Okay, just rolling around because I was getting a bit bored. Tried to aggro a few other pirates to shoot me. Still going. Here we go, I dropped my first 2 SCBs here. Dropped another 2 SCBs here, I think. No, I think I dropped 1 here. I think I dropped another SCB here. I was getting a bit confused because I had to press the SCB button twice for it to activate both SCBs. And there's another one. I think I'd run out of heat sinks. And another one. And another one, but I've started to get out of there because I know I run out of SCBs, and I wanted to be in a spot where I could at least jump to hyperspace if my hull got down too low. So I'm just getting away, making a nice little buffer zone for myself. Shields are still up. I'm taking a bit less damage now because there's only a few of them following me, but the rest will catch up shortly. 8 minutes. Okay. I've come to a bit of a stop here so the other ships could catch up and get some fire on me. Just spinning around. My only concern is when my shields do drop, I'm going to take a lot of module damage. And I'm afraid of losing my engines or worse, FSD. So approaching 10 minutes and there's my shields go down now. Okay, now I'm going to leave this in real time so you can just see basically how well the armor takes the punishment. So I've got, as you can see, I've got quite a few fighters firing at me. I think I've got 4 or 5 small fighters and there's a Federal assault ship and a Federal gunship, I think. Now, basically, I'm just trying to rotate myself around so that I just don't focus fire on my engines all the time. And I try to spread the damage around evenly. So basically I'm just trying to act as a bit of a bullet sponge here and just try to see how much damage I can soak up. Now, I don't have any module reinforcement packages on at the moment, but it is obviously something that I am thinking about. Basically, I just wanted to see how well the armor modules would be. Now, I'm trying to boost away, and I'm not focusing on my pips. This is my fault. I was being a bit silly. I was so concerned about how much damage I was taking, I was not paying attention to my pips. I should have been putting pips into engines, not leaving them into shields. There you go, realised my mistake, and finally woke up. This is about where I decided to call it quits, as I was getting a bit more concerned about my drives being shot out, or my frameshift drive being shot out. And I think that gave a pretty good indication of how well the armour will go, being shot down to 62%. Anyway, let's head back. So there we have it. This is my current build for the Federal Corvette. If you want to see this build in action, then I suggest you watch one of these videos. Links should appear above, and they are also in the description. Just please know that this is a work in progress. Now that the Thargoids have invaded space, this build will evolve into my Thargoid Hunter. So the weapons loadout will change, and I'll be installing new modules to counter the threat of Thargoid vessels. I hope you enjoyed this video and it gives you some ideas on how to build your own Federal Corvette. If you like this video or any of my other videos, please consider supporting me on Patreon. The more support I can get from you guys means more time I can take away from my day-to-day work and direct it towards making more content. If you can't, then supporting me by liking the video and subscribing would also be fantastic. Also, don't forget to add me on Twitter to keep up to date with what I'm doing and other silly shenanigans. This is Vindicator Jones signing off. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you out there in the big black.